Prior to the Great War, which caused the collapse of all financial systems that had been established by global powers, wealth could grant you anything you desired. When all that came crashing down, credit cards and paper money just became meaningless plastic and fuel for the fire. But in every society, including a post-nuclear one, there will be those who seek to survive through honest trade, and in the case of the Fallout franchise, that trade would evolve a universally accepted standard that might have been ignored when resources were plenty. Of course, we're talking about bottle caps, the wasteland's currency. But why bottle caps are still the Fallout currency after 200 years? Surely there are other resources more desirable than bottle caps. Well, the answer might surprise you. The classic overproduction. If you're anything like me, you want to understand exactly how everything in the Fallout universe came to be. Perhaps Nuka-Cola knew that their bottle caps might become a commodity that would be sought after in its own right? Either they seem to have been aware of what was coming, or was it that the drink was such a massive success that producing billions of bottles in under a century was just profitable? Imagine that you're playing New Vegas in the middle of the night and, like some sort of revelation, start thinking about how exactly the 10,000 caps that you're holding right now don't weigh? Well, that's a question for another time. When you really think about it, the number of bottle caps lying around in the wasteland is pretty insane. Every cap must have been on a bottle at some point, so for each bottle cap, there had to be that many bottles being produced and sold on a massive scale. The wild part is that there actually was. Nuka-Cola was so massive that bottling facilities were everywhere. One of those bottling facilities and the advanced production technology held within was even used to cure a deadly mutagenic plague during the events of Fallout 76's Wastelanders update. They were even able to label it still, and though there were a few name options that players could choose, such as Nuka-Cola Vaccinated and Nuka-Cola Scorched, official merchandise released on the Bethesda store page seems to promote the idea that Nuka-Cola My Blood's in It is the canon name. Just one of these facilities could pump out Nuka-Cola by the thousands. With so many of these facilities in existence, there could have been millions hitting the market on any given day. It's possible that there were even trillions of bottle caps out there during the final days of the old world. The scale of this production was so huge that the idea of caps becoming a currency actually makes sense once you realize just how much Nuka-Cola dominated the everyday life of pre-war Americans. There's no miracle behind it. Overproduction on a massive scale. In barely 50 years, Nuka-Cola factories produced an unbelievable number of bottles and delivered into the hands of consumers from all walks of life. So many that their factories kept production running non-stop. Their vending machines were on every corner. Stores and supermarkets were stocked to the ceiling with the beverages. And people loved the stuff so much that almost every household in the old world kept a case of it on hand. When the Great War started and everything around just exploded, the caps survived a lot of that punishment. They were in all places, almost literally, in basements forgotten. In some cities that didn't suffer as much, so they were just dust. There are truckloads just waiting to be uncovered. Ruins were all over the place, but still. But even in that position, scavengers could get some fresh bottles almost regularly. Talk about luck. Considering that you can still find non-irradiated and decently fresh Nuka-Colas everywhere, imagine all the caps you would just find laying around. It's easy to say that the supply will simply never dry. With so many bottle caps out there waiting to be scavenged, with many still sealed in pristine condition on ready-to-drink bottles of Nuka-Cola, just how were they able to withstand 200 years of degradation? Well, that's because of the materials that they're made of. Solid metal. Another pro-fact is that the caps are much more durable than paper, obviously I know, but at the same time it's one of the strongest factors that cemented bottle caps as a currency. We are talking about pressed steel and aluminum alloys. Something tough enough that can even get rusty or bend in irregular ways, but not break, and withstand the wear and tear of everyday wasteland travel all the more because of the metallic compositions that they are made of. With money being paper and the credit cards and whatever plastic, you tell me a better option than a currency that is basically indestructible to any accident and even survive harsh climates. Being buried, shot through with certain weapons and still be good enough to be traded for some RadAway, I for example cannot think of a better option for a currency. Being metallic in composition worked in two key ways. They could survive through a lot of disasters in one piece, but ironically, the metals used were the cheapest materials available because the resources wars and the scarcity of oil would have drove up the cost of plastics. The bottle's glass and the cap's metal was not only a good idea, it was the only one. Now it is common that the plastic bottle caps are a standard, but in the Fallout lore they sort of remained in the 50s or 60s, so the tin-plated steel and the aluminium were the go-to in terms of sealing these soft drinks. We sorted out why the caps were metal and how they were in the billions, but what about just grabbing whatever metal and starting cutting it like caps? The counterfeits. The mystery is easy to sort out. Still, we have to divide it into small steps to completely reveal how counterfeiting is almost impossible on caps. This actually is covered in some games, as you can dismantle a fake caps factory or abandoned abandoned shacks where they used to make them, the Mojave Wasteland is like the no-law land, where anything goes, and in here there are multiple attempts to make them. Not to mention that the courier was chosen to be the one in charge of managing these production lines. He also comes with the incredible function to recognize the fake bottle caps, knowing if they're being swindled by a counterfeiter. I think it is general knowledge, but to make a cap that passes inspection, saying it doesn't make much sense, I know, but is an official coin in the wasteland. So yeah, you will need some verification to know that your money is legit. Nothing harsh though, you need an industrial-grade hydraulic press and a very specific 21 Ridge die. This is the first trick, as the raiders, that are the most common dudes that try to make this type of thing, have certain homemade versions that lack the details. For example, they might have 20 ridges, or 22, or the ridges are slightly rounded, things that, to be fair, not every person will see. And I cannot say that the most dumb could see if they start appreciating the caps in a more close look. Yeah, I know that not everyone will count the ridges, so that could fly past someone. If someone is experienced in handing or handling money like a seasoned merchant, they almost 100% sure will feel the difference just by running their thumb over a handful of caps in a leather pouch. If the texture is mushy, you're likely getting a bullet instead of a stim pack. So by any means, they are easy to make as counterfeit. And so overall, one of the most simplistic reasons that at the same time is one of the most logical ones is that it is a real pain to try and fake them. Besides having the exact machine, you will need the exact same aluminum alloy that was used in the pre-war. And remember that you're living in the wasteland where most that you find, if you have the luck to find something, is scrap, scrap, and more scrap. If for some miracle you get to a factory or something that actually held together and saved the materials, don't jump the gun yet. You still need a couple of other things to start creating your own money. Remember that the caps have a design in particular with all the edges and the stamp. You also need the right paint and ink for coloring the logo and overall the cap. As if that wasn't hard enough, you need to give it some sort of age to appear worn as much as a 200-plus-year-old bottle cap would. For the average Joe that is running around the wasteland trying to survive, that's far too much more than he can manage to get in a lifetime. So as you can see, it is extremely hard to do something more than basic counterfeits with easy detection. Now let's see the scope for the whole deal. I mean, investing time in seeing the practical aspects too. Not only the counterfeit, I mean, if they have used them for so long, more serious reasons exist too, right? The inflation aspect. As I explained before, they are hard to fake for multiple reasons that we dealt with. But what if I told you that not everything is by chance? The trades made finding bottle caps like buried treasure in the desert. So that means that you can get rich with a stroke of luck, right? The reality is, no, sharp and easy. And if you stop to think about it, it is really simple. What stops you from going right now treasure hunt? Exactly, nothing at all. And still the chances of finding something are closer to 0 than 1% alone. So hard pill to swallow. After the bombs, everything fell to dust and rubble, and the people actually went a while without any type of centralized coins, so the caps were like more garbage for a while. When everything with the water supply traders cleared up and they came with the solutions of the caps, one of the most logical fears was exactly that one. People could quickly spot real caps and make bank in a good haul. That was quickly deemed to be completely useless as the supply is limited from the very beginning. There's a limited amount of caps in the world, and those were almost completely flagged as lost because you can only get small numbers of them, and the unique way of producing them is extremely checked with very controlled groups, and exists an active force trying to shut them down. They are abundant in some extent, but at the same time not so abundant. I mean, enough exists to lay around, and at the moment the people started using them, they weren't that common, so anyone that found them got a bit of spare change, similar to finding a bill of $5, is not the 100 to change completely your day or the one bill to almost ignore it. It's just enough to keep pushing forward to the next supply they might uncover. Other practical capacities that this caps have are the fact of being seriously light and portable. Just imagine having a little bag or even a pouch. Just how many could fit there? And also way easier to transport them than having goods for trade like organic stuff, for example food or water, or even weapons of diverse naturality. Another thing to point out is that they are easy to find besides counting them. Imagine getting to a shop and starting counting them. No argument, because one side has better goods or better quality of whatever supply trying to trade than just some caps and a fair and square deal. Limited edition. Now imagine as your last will, a limited edition bottle cap was released before the Great War, a very priced collectible for someone's. But what is exactly this? This is a Sunset Sarsaparilla bottle cap with a luminous blue star on the bottom. Very unique if you ask me, and if you gather 50 of them, you can get a very interesting reward. Making this is a very valuable commodity that everyone wants to have their hands on, but don't be confident about this, because just imagine how a limited item with the rumors of it having to collect some to get some treasure, this makes it also very dangerous. What do we do with these bottle caps? It is very easy easy. You need to go to the Sunset Sarsaparilla Company's headquarters in Las Vegas, where you will meet Mr. Festus. It may sound very easy, but in this world where the people kill for what is precious to them, and these bottle caps are the perfect excuse or maybe the right motive for them to make a move. But if you manage to survive and still collect the bottle caps, go on, claim your price, it is waiting for you. Let's get a drum roll, please, because the long wait has finally arrived. You're about to know what it is in door number 3, or should I say what the price is for getting all of the star bottle caps. You get an amazing 1,500 regular bottle caps, 319 Toy Deputy badges. In case you forgot, these are useless due to them being overproduced before the Great War. Also, they were part of the scam for the first winners in the old days. And last but not least, the unique laser pistol Pew Pew. I don't know who got the time to hide all of this stuff in here, but finders keepers. At least you get a decent amount of bottle caps over this and a nice gun. But come on, how can they give us a life supply of useless badges? Oh well, corporate wins again. Now that we are done talking about limited edition bottle caps and a somewhat cool robot, let's go towards the direct contender of the bottle cap, a royal rumble of currencies. Currency rivals. The acceptance of the bottle cap was not a good thing for everyone. As you may know, there are other types of currency in Fallout's world, and when there are multiple parties trying to take control over it, it is hard for just one to be universally accepted. There's not many who accept the NCR dollars because of how little trust its citizens have in the currency. With that being said, let's talk about one that is not a direct competitor in this line, but it also benefits the other rivals. Poker chips. Over in New Vegas, you can play the casino games, and the chips you earn can be traded over the different types of currency. Like in Old Vegas, it is a sin if you don't gamble. If there is a possibility for you to hit a jackpot, you will take your chances. It takes money to make money, but the thrill of the jackpot is enough to keep folks trading in their bottle caps, NCR bills, and Legion denaries for as many chips as they can get their hands on. Yeah, chips are a currency backed purely by the addiction of gamblers, but at least it's a stable currency as long as Mr. House controls New Vegas. One of the other top contenders for the currency is the Legion's coin. These coins are made of silver and gold. With this, they keep their value alone. No one can deny the practical value of gold and silver. Although they don't have good relationships with other factions on the Mojave Wasteland, it is still a valid currency, but it cannot rival that of the bottle cap because as an exchange, you can trade 4 bottle caps for a silver coin or 100 bottle caps for a gold coin. With this, we can have a clear idea of just how powerful the bottle cap really is as a currency, even rivaling the likes of the gold and the silver. Who would have thought that a piece of aluminum would be this powerful? This rival was already supposed to be extinct by all that happened, but people still have memories of it, and it's not all that useless. Yes, you guess it, right. We are talking about the good old dollar. The old war dollar bills were reduced only to be as good as toilet paper, but aside from that, there are places that still recognize this as a valid currency, such as Sierra Madre Casino and Resort or the Nuka World Amusement Park. As you may see, this doesn't directly affect the bottle cap as a currency, because, well, the worthless piece of paper that it turns to, but we have to admire the attempts that the NCR made to make the dollar bill great again. Overall, having economic control over the world is somewhat an important achievement for everyone, because it can be used for good or for evil. Do you really think that the Legion or the NCR with their currency made them just because the world needed them? Of course not. They are selfish little factions that wanted to have the largest piece of cake that is the Commonwealth. As you can see, the bottle cap had many obstacles for it to cross in order for it to get where it is. But the people that began using it, the merchants and even the government saw that, and you cannot compete versus the people again. You already did too much. But luckily for the bottle cap, he left $1 over in the dust. He sent it directly toward retirement. The future is now, and the one that adapts is always the winner. Now that the rivals are out, we are missing the important stuff, how it really becomes the shark to financial success. From being part of a publicity ad in a resort, from being the foundation of today's currency in the Commonwealth. It wasn't easy, but here we are. The bottle caps are the currency used all over the Commonwealth. How, you ask? Well, it had its issues, but the events really took in a liking for this painted metal. Let's talk about how this happened. When humanity's endless greed led to the global reset button being pressed in the form of atomic hellfire, there became a need for something that people would exchange for any supplies that one might need to survive. Some might say that it was a galaxy brain moment when bottle caps were chosen by the barons at the hub to be the new dollar in the wasteland. No one could have predicted that, but it happened. They might have needed those bottle caps to seal old glass bottles so that they could ship their purified water through the region of California that would later birth the NCR. They knew that the materials used in the production of bottle caps were hard to come by, and any other metal source could have been contaminated with lead or some other chemicals. Nuka-Cola bottle caps were the safe option, as they had brand recognition. Their caps aren't going to be confused for anything else. Unlike paper bottle caps are way harder to fake because they require specific out-of-production metals. Even so, none saw this coming. It started rising over in economic power. It got even stronger when the barons backed the value of bottle caps with water. With this, people trusted the currency because they knew they could exchange their caps caps for the one resource that we need more than food. This exchange system literally kept the fragile post-war wasteland hydrated and stable. With this solid foundation, communities on the West Coast were able to survive and even thrive long enough to become the new California Republic. But in the East Coast, where the civilization was more of a mess, why are bottle caps still the go-to currency for caravanners? Perhaps many avid collectors wanted to continue collecting unique variants of Nuka-Cola bottle caps after the war. Or perhaps the answer lies in the ruins of the White Springs Resort in Appalachia. The owners of the White Spring Resort formed a partnership for the release of Nuka-Cola Quantum. To promote the drink, they reprogrammed all their robots to accept bottle caps as payment, and when the bombs fell, those robots simply kept following their new programming, continued to accept bottle caps instead of paper currency. So survivors that sought refuge there had to scavenge the wasteland for bottle caps to acquire any supplies that the robots might have to offer, as trying to just take it by force would unleash their heavy robot security system. The major event that turned this currency to be as powerful as it is today is when the new California Republic wanted to spread a new form of dollar, but backed it up with gold. This is basically how the real world does it, but they forgot that this is not the old world. Now there are other threats and new enemies. This system collapsed when the Brotherhood of Steel wiped out the NCR's gold reserves. Without gold backing, the paper money became a useless flat currency that only has value because someone says it does. Tired of the NCR's incompetence, powerful merchants like the Crimson Caravan decided to revert back to using bottle caps. These merchant companies monopolized cap production to prevent people from overprinting and to maintain a stable currency. Because of this aggressive merchant backing, caps became a stable, widely accepted currency across multiple territories. Even among rival factions like the Legion, the wasteland economy boils down to one simple truth. Money is only worth what people agree to accept. Whether it is Nuka-Cola or Sunset Sarsaparilla, the survivors trust the metal, making old-world paper better suited for starting a campfire. Going forward, let's talk about how the bottle cap gained ground and become the menace that it is today. Settlement. Once it had ground where to step it, skyrocket over to the trustable currency that Fallout would use even to this day. Having achieved this makes the world much easier. As you know, a world without any currency leads to disaster, having to make even harsher trades in order to get a hold on the daily needs. Seriously though, what kind of currency could be even suitable to replace the bottle cap? This world is in ruins. I don't want to trade radioactive rocks just for some water, or even worse, the limit scrap that is on the world. This made the bottle caps the only viable option. And as we spoke before, they were already in use without even having to do some meeting to have it approved as the currency in this world. History made it even more trustworthy when there were multiple locations that used the caps. This made it so it was way easier for the merchants to go in the world and trade goods. This made it a huge win for the bottle caps. Is there nothing this thing can't do? The cherry on top of the currency cake is when the citizens panic over when the Brotherhood snatch all the gold from the NCR and their attempt to make a dollar again. This was clearly the KO for the battle of currencies, being that the bottle cap were very dominating and already widely established as the main currency for this world. There are other varieties of bottle caps that also made the Nuka-Cola one the more trustworthy, although some merchants like the Mojave accept the Sunset Sarsaparilla bottle caps. But as you can see, they are bottle caps in the end, making this the only viable currency in the post-apocalyptic world. With all of this, they managed to get a strong foundation and hold its ground for the future. No one can outthrow the bottle cap as the sole king and ruler of all the wasteland, being the only one capable of rising since day one. Still, caps are just metal in a shape. So what exactly backs them up as money, I think is easy to answer, but at the same time, far too critical to not explain it. The recognition and backup. Money is hard to start getting in track, but the initial value of the caps, as the logic dictates, was almost worthless. Just a small value for the metal that they may hold, but almost zero. So how exactly everything worked out for the caps to suddenly get so valuable as the universally recognized coin in a world destroyed? Well, the water traders from the hub. Value spawned almost instantaneously. The merchants at some moment just said, "Bring us caps, and we will give you a set amount of perfectly fine water." And the ball started rolling because the water is the real value that started everything. Water is life in the wasteland, and before the Great War was too. So everyone needing it, well, the path was as straight as a road can be. The system was created the instant that the first deal went on. The traders carried the system with them and spread it. Why, you may ask, because was a centralized way of making both parts happy. In the first few days that this started spreading, everyone just saw the caps as a trade, not a transaction with money involved. So in the end, we can say that this started instantly. Cool. And at the same time, a bit rushed. But who would think that 200 years later, they would still use it, and far more, become the de facto currency for the whole new era for human history. If you enjoyed this video and want to see why Fallout's world never returned to normal after 200 years, click the video on the screen.